Hello.
Hi, Srinivas.
Artha, good evening.
Mm.
Let's start the recording.
Started.
Okay. These are the topics we discussed during our last class. So do you have doubt on any of the topic?
No.
Clear, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So do you know what is Spring is?
No.
Okay. Have you ever heard the name?
Yeah, I heard that.
Spring is also kind of a framework where it supports a couple of features. So it is not specific to database, but it has like general features as such. Okay. It is the most popular application development framework for enterprise Java applications. So millions of Java developers around the world use the Spring framework to create high performing and easily testable and reusable kind of applications. Okay. So Spring has a couple of modules inside it, and mainly Spring is kind of a loosely coupling. So far, like if you look at it in general Java, so we'll code everything whatever we require. But in the Spring also we'll code the same way, but we'll whatever we do, everything we register in a Spring configuration file with the name as bean. Suppose if you create a new Java class, we'll register that Java class in the beans configuration file. There is a configuration file specific to Spring. So whatever the Java file you register there, we call it as a bean because Spring is going to manage all the beans that you have created, means all the Java classes that you have created. Okay? If the Spring is managing, so it will be under the control of Spring. If Spring is not managing, still you can use those Java classes, but it will be in your hands, like whether what you want to do with it. Okay. Spring means whatever the life cycle and everything, it takes care of all those things. If we are taking care, so we need to do all those things. Primary components in the Spring are BeanFactory and application context. These are the primary context with respect to the Spring.
Okay.
Okay. BeanFactory is an implementation of a factory pattern. Okay. That applies
Implementation of a
factory pattern. You know what is
factory
pattern?
Okay.
You know pattern? Right. So factory pattern is one of the pattern. So BeanFactory is based on that factory pattern that applies the inversion of control to separate application configuration and its dependencies from the application code, actual application code.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll repeat that. It is an implementation of a factory pattern that applies inversion of control to separate application configuration and the dependencies from the actual application code. Means when you're writing actual application code, suppose if you're doing small program, program might require some other Java class. What we usually do in generally, we'll create an instance of the Java class and we'll start using it, right?
Yes.
So in the Spring, so what we'll do, we will not create the instance of directly. Instead, in the configuration file, we will pass that instance. So the first case, your class and the class which is there, you made it as tightly coupled, right? Without that class, you won't be able to run, right? But in the case, you'll be passing as an interfaces kind of thing, and you'll be passing in the Spring configuration file. So here, you made it as loosely coupled.
I mean, here we are passing the instance, I mean Java object to in configuration file.
In the configuration file to make it loosely coupled. Means if you are working with multiple Java classes, okay, with respect to the Spring Beans, so what you are going to map it in the configuration file. So here you are making it as loosely coupled. Means
loosely coupled.
Yes. If it is a tightly coupled means.
Okay.
You don't know the word that loosely coupled and tightly coupled?
No.
Okay, then I will try. If it's tightly coupled means if you are like using one class, as I told you, there's some other class you wanted to use, so that class you have initialized inside that class, and what happened without that class you cannot work with your class, right?
Yeah, but I didn't got it.
There is a dependency. So there is tightly coupled, like means without that you won't be able to do. So they are linked together.
Oh, I didn't got that point. Can you repeat it again?
Yeah, we have a class main functionality that you are working inside that class. You wanted to do with some other functionality which is there in some other class. That functionality you are creating an instance in your class and you are doing the remaining work. Now class and your class are tightly coupled. Means there is without that class your program is not going to work, right? If you try to compile your program without that class, what happens? Because you started coding based on that class, if that class is not there, your class is not going to compile, right?
Yeah. So class not found.
Yeah. Basically here tightly coupled. Without that it won't be working.
Okay.
So here the dependency, right? Yeah. Okay. You did something inside that, you are accessing some other class. So it was working fine. So somehow that class is not available now. Your program is also not going to work because your class is based on that class. Whatever the logic you wrote, somewhere you are using that class. But if that class is not available, your program is not going to work at all because they are tightly coupled.
Okay.
Got it?
Loosely coupled means
we are not going to make them as a tightly coupled. Means here we are talking about the class, right?
I mean, we are not creating any dependencies.
We are not creating any dependencies. We make them as loosely coupled. Means factory pattern, you know?
Just no. You asked me for that reason. I thought no. I don't know that also. Okay,
then we have to tell that. Generally, we have a design patterns concept in Java, right? Do you know that? Otherwise, first I'll add that one first. Design patterns. I was about to cover later. Do you know what is design pattern?
No.
Okay. Design pattern is a general word which indicates that we have many design patterns in the Java. Many design patterns. Okay. Generally, pattern is nothing but like a problem. Let's say you are facing a problem. So when you are designing your project, maybe when you are writing your project, you are facing some problem. In the sense like you don't know how to achieve this. Not with respect to coding, with respect to designing of your objects. Okay. So that kind of problems already been. So Java is not came today, right? It's been like more than a decade. So obviously that kind of problems have been faced by many developers earlier, many ancestors we can say, right? So all those kind of common problems and the major common problem they have identified and they have created a solution and they have named it as a pattern.
Okay.
Got it? So they have identified the solution problem and the solution, they have named it. So in case if you are facing the similar kind of a problem, what you can do, you can use the solution what they are suggesting.
Okay.
Got it? That's the pattern name. One of
Okay.
the
Okay.
most common used pattern is Singleton design pattern. Okay, so here anyway, like in the discussion we are referring to the factory pattern, right?
Yeah.
For the known problem, they have already identified the solution. So instead of you reinventing the solution for it, so what Java is suggesting, so there is already for known problem. So use the solution whatever they have suggested. It's also Java
Okay.
code, but the problem you do not need to reinvent the wheel. So it's already invented. Just use it.
Okay.
And patterns are.
Mm-mm.
Or you want me to repeat the design pattern? What is design pattern? Design patterns are nothing but those are the solutions that were already given for a common problem. So obviously, when we are working on any project and the design level, so we might have some design issues,
Yeah.
some challenges, not with the regular coding, not with so the designing level. If you have some issues, so there are common issues that got identified and they have named it as a pattern. Pattern is nothing but a solution.
Okay.
The word design, right? Design level it is. So
Okay. I mean, in the design phase of the project.
yes, exactly.
Okay.
So that indicates like even in the coding also we refer to them, but the high level design they initially take this kind of a decisions like what pattern we have to use, where we have to use, and all those things.
Oh, in programming also we use this.
Yes, programming also we use this.
Okay. Okay.
Because there are many patterns. So the most common one is in the interviews, like 90% of the people are, you will ask about this one. What is a singleton design pattern?
Okay.
Okay. So once you listen to those things, that will be nothing. So singleton design pattern. Let's say you are working with the database programming, right? Example. So I wanted to open a database connection and only for the first time. After that, like if somebody asks for the database connection, I should give the same database connection.
Okay.
This is the problem. Means here I took the example as database connection. So anything it should work only for the first time. There onwards, whatever it is already opened, the same thing it has to be shared to the programmers.
Okay. Opening has to be done only once.
Only once. So let's say 10 developers are there. 10 developers are working on the same project. So first time whoever requested for the database connection, it has to open because it's the first time, right? Immediately next time somebody asks for database connection, it should not, because database connection is like a huge operation.
Yeah.
Whereas like it's 2 to 3 lines of code, but in the background it does a lot. So it's kind of like costly operation we say. So just to perform, you can do your functionality with a single database connection. So why can't you reuse the same connection instead of creating again and again horas, right? So you need to use the same database connection. So how do you make sure that the only one database connection is created and the same database connection is being used by all of developers? So all throughout your project. So how do you make sure? So how do you code this? This is one problem. And they have resolved that problem. They have given a solution as a singleton design pattern.
Okay.
Once you look at the code, then there's nothing. It's a simple.
Okay.
First, until we see that solution, so like we don't know, right? That's the first step. How to handle that scenario?
I think once the database open, then I think it should be available. Everybody should be able to know that it's already open. Like
yeah, it's already open. So, but everybody is going to call common method called get connection.
Oh yeah, get connection. Okay, connection to database.
Yeah. Get connection method is going to perform the connectivity to database and it is give you the connection. Okay. You have 10 programs and program 1 called the get connection, it got the connections of the database. Program 2 also going to call the get connection. So the get connection is what it's having inside it. It's going to have the connection now, creation logic, right? It will create one more thing. So we need to have some kind of a small workaround. It's only few lines of code, small workaround to make sure that it will create only once.
Oh, yeah. So it already open.
It's already open. So next time somebody asks, you should not, right?
Yeah.
So how do
We
we?
should. Okay.
Simple. So I'll just do the program. Here is result over a database connection itself.
Database.
I'm just copying the to today's folder. So right now, if you remember that day, so every time like you ask for a connection, it used to create a connection, it used to print this one, right? It is performing this one every time.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I'll just create a small test program. I'll convert this as a single result. Same class I'm adding both the things. So far nothing I did. I just added one variable. Right? So this is your program. So from here you would like to request for a database connection, right? So what we need to make sure, like, so even though I ask for multiple types, give me connection, it should not create again and again, right? Connection. Before writing the actual logic, I'm showing like how many objects is going to create. So here I asked for 2 times, right? Assume that these are 2 programs. Okay. In the program one, you asked for this one. you got a connection. In some other program, you asked for a connection, you got a connection, right?
Yeah.
So I just printed contour.
So we answer for 2 connections.
Yeah, asked for a connection.
2 times.
I asked for 2 times. Example here. So I got a connection. I just printed. So here ID change. That means it has perfect. Sorry. It has performed this complete logic and it gave me a connection, right? So
Yeah.
for me, I can work with single connection, but still, whenever I ask for a connection, it is having it is because it is not taking care, not handling in the singleton design pattern way. It's giving me a new connection. Now, what we have to do, we need to tweak a logic in this method.
Okay.
In this method, we need to write a small logic. So logic is nothing very simple.
So it is getting connection for 2 times. The result is that, right?
Yes, that's the result. So if you ask for answer, so assume that this is in one program and this is in one program, and some other program you're asking for answer and connection. So in the same project, you might be having multiple programs, right? And one is to save something, one is to delete something, one is to perform something, right? Whenever you need to perform something, you need to get a database connection. So database connection is every time you ask, it will open a new connection. So we don't want that. Right?
Understood.
So here, because in the same program, I just created a replicated same thing. Intention is to make it single. Now, how do you write the logic? So for that, you need to have a variable of your class type. This is the new line added, right?
Okay.
So which should be a static type. Okay.
Okay, variable of same of class name.
Class name, and which should be of the static has to be created. Need to write. That con is created two classes. This example, whether does it suits exactly. Because the singleton object itself, like when I dynamically renamed Eclipse, right? So it has also changed here. That's where I'm checking like why I'm not getting connection object to this one.
So what happened?
So here it was demo. That means
Oh yeah.
so demo is this class which doesn't have anything, right? Which is your test class.
Okay.
And using Eclipse, so it has also renamed this one and this one. But this one I didn't realize. I just modified this one to normal and continuously trying to load the program.
Okay.
So I'm expecting this connection object because the names are conflicted. So this is expecting this is looking at the connection object in this one.
This one, yes. Okay.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
not a problem. Okay. Also gonna change it right. So we're making a mistake. What do with it? That program I made it as a complicated, so I'm just making it as simple now. Just to understand only the
Okay.
I made especially I made it as messy. This one. But I didn't print it. I got different objects, right? Whenever I ask for a get instance, assume that get instance is get connection method.
Okay, get instance means get connection only.
Yes. So usually get instance and internally we'll write a connection logic. This is just a
So
method name.
okay, we asked for the connection 3 times, so it displayed the 3 IDs.
3 IDs. Yes. Now what we have to do? We have to take a private variable which is of type static of the same class at the top.
Singleton DP.
Whatever the class name, same type of the variable you need to create, and we need to double check here if what happened here.
So we created.
I asked for 3 times.
So same ID created.
So how it's happening? So when we call this guy, he's calling get instance method, right? First time get instance executed. So when the first if condition checked, if it is null, yes, it is the null for the first time, right? Then it has created an object, and it is written the content whatever it's there inside it. So obviously this object, new object, right? Next, so it came to the same method. If is this null? No, right? Because it's already created as someone.
Yeah.
So it will not enter inside it. It will simply return that object. Next guy came. So same thing. It will not enter inside it. So this is a singleton code.
Okay, it's returning the same object. Okay.
Because at the end goal, what it's happening, no matter like how, for you, whoever is invoking that get instance method, for him it doesn't know that what's happening internally. He requests a connection, is giving a connection, right?
Okay.
So in your program, you made a twist like I'm not going to create a connection again and again if the connection object is already created with me.
So another application, it's going to ask for the database connection.
Yes.
So already once the connection is opened,
same connection are going to send. So they're going to come in the same way.
Oh, it is getting the connection. Okay, the before connection.
So if you observe the console, rerun, it's getting the connection. See, we asked for
same one.
So just for one more time, it does the same thing because as long as
understood
this. So that program I copied and made it as message. So I do not want to confuse with that. So I wanted to tell you actual.
Yeah, it is simple. Now this program is very simple to understand.
Otherwise,
yeah.
If you invoke one more time, it's going to be the same. No matter like how many times invoke, it's going to happen same. Now, assume that line number 21 is executing at 10th second, maybe 24th line might be executing at the 12th second, right? An example. So this is executing at one timestamp and this is executing at one time. So two different timestamps. So here one by one is going to come inside here and obviously it checks for the condition. Definitely create. But assuming that your application is a huge application, number of users are more. So there might be very, very less chances that two guys or maybe multiple guys came to this program at the same time for the creation of a connection.
Okay.
So that is one more problem. So assume that two guys came inside the same program at the same time, means two threads. Okay. So first one who checks for this, he feels that object is not there, it will create. Because next guy is also the same line. She feels that the object is not there, it created. So how many objects are created? Two objects are created, right? So you are intentionally trying to create a singleton pattern, but you are missing something here in the minor part. Got it? Got the issue? In the singleton pattern also, if you implement only this part, there will be an issue, minor issue. If it is a users are more, and if there is a concurrent usage of the application is more, then there will be a problem because the program is not in a position to give single thing. If the
so it is giving the connection, right? So what is the problem?
So So what is the purpose of singleton? So at any cost, it should maintain only one object, right?
Yeah, one object, yes.
If the guys are, if the threads are, if the multiple programs are requesting for a connection at the different times, so one by one obviously enter inside this, and it makes sure that only one connection is created, right?
Yes.
But two program requests came at the same time.
Okay.
Two guys enter into the line number 7, 8, 9. So when the two guys enter into line number 9, it will enter and it will create an object for both of them. That means you are making the singleton rule here, right? You're creating two objects. There itself, like the actual problem, whatever we intentionally made for the connection, we have violated, right?
Oh. Then we can use the threads.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, the threads concept only we have to just implement. So
okay.
Remember.
Okay, to know the problem. Okay, I got it.
Yeah. First, I told you the problem.
Yes. When two guys come at the same time, then the problem occurs.
Both will enter into the room, right?
Yeah.
Should not be like one by one only. We have to.
Yeah.
I just added this word. So synchronized. We have already discussed, right? This one.
Yes.
So synchronized is a keyword. Use that keyword. Either you can use with a block or you can use with a method. Okay. If you use a block like combination, only this part is going to be executed only one guy at a time. Okay. Means one at a time. If you use this method, this at the method level, so this method is going to be executed only one thread at a time, no matter like how many threads came into execution. So out of the whore is entered into the first room first, so obviously he's going to log that, and until he completes, next guy can't enter. First guy came and he did everything, he opened a connection. When the next guy enters into the block, so it's already created, right?
Yeah.
So then there won't be a problem. So the common problem with the singleton design pattern is like, so if we are developing only with this part, then we might violate if the application usage is a concurrent. There is a possibility of creating a multiple connections. That means you are violating, though you are stating that you are using singleton pattern, but ideally you are violating that. Right? So if you add this one, so you are making sure that none of them is going to be violated.
Okay.
Got it?
Got it.
This is the singleton design pattern. With the singleton design pattern, is only one object is you are going to make sure to create either a connection or anything. So your intention is to create only one object.
Connection.
Here example we took as a connection. It can be anything.
Okay. So creating only one object.
Yes. Let's say we have a file. So there is a huge file. I do not want to open this file again and again. So whoever opens this file for the first time, I would like to use the same file object. Right?
Yeah.
When the resource is a kind of like a huge resource and there is a high impact in the performance. So whatever is the first action it has opened, so we would like to use the same thing. You're not going to open again and again because of the resource usage and everything. Right?
Yes.
That's where the singleton design pattern is. Clear?
Clear.
Now we'll come back to the regular. BeanFactory. So here it's an implementation of factory pattern that applies your inversion of control to separate application configuration and dependencies from the actual application code. And BeanFactory is heart of any Spring-based application. So it's like core. Without that, we cannot. So let's say when you are saying that I know Spring, if it doesn't even know like what is BeanFactory, then you cannot even assume that the person is aware of the Spring, because that's such of like a basic. Without BeanFactory, you won't be able to do anything. It's kind of like hard to the Spring. So application context. Application context is built on top of BeanFactory. Means so on top of, in the sense like derived. BeanFactory is one class, and on top of that application context is derived, means whatever the functionalities which are there in the BeanFactory class, all those functionalities obviously will be available in the application context, because it's a parent and child kind of a relationship.
Okay.
Okay. So base and derived, right? So application context extends the BeanFactory and provides a support for internationalization, additional kind of a functionality, the lifecycle events and all those things. So whatever the BeanFactory is going to do, everything application context is also going to do, but it has additional features like lifecycle management. All those things are going to be taken care as part of the application context.
Okay.
So both are used to, like, especially in the layman terms, using these two, we are going to load the configuration files and we are going to so the when I say configuration files, so all the beans that are going to be all the beans that are going to be configured in the XML file.
Okay.
BeanFactory implementations, most popular implementations like XML.
So BeanFactory is one of the type of design pattern.
Is it?
No, I'm asking that just is BeanFactory is one of the design pattern?
Yes, it's it's not design pattern. It is based on the factory pattern. It's kind of like it's based on that solution.
Oh, okay. Actually, this factory design pattern is one type of pattern. So
Yes.
from that we got this. That's what I'm
Yes,
asking.
exactly. Yes.
Okay. Okay. So it's the solution of the pattern.
Yes.
Factory design pattern. Okay.
Yes. So the factory design pattern. In the factory design pattern, what happens?
So one pattern can contain any number of solutions or only one solution?
One pattern is nothing but one solution. So Singleton.
Okay.
So when I say Singleton design pattern, what is the issue? Your intention is not to create a multiple instances for any number of records. So what you have to do? You have to deal with only one object.
Okay.
So how to deal? So we need to do a double condition and we need to add the synchronized. Right? And the factory design pattern is like it's going to have the interface and we'll be having a multiple implementation classes, and to the outer world, based on the implementation of that class, is going to create only one object, but which is a transparent that which object is created.
So we are also creating only one object in factory design pattern also.
This is different way. So here in the factory design pattern, so you'll be having an interface and you'll be having implementation of two implementation from that multiple implementation from that interface. Okay. So you are going to ask for a object. So it is going to give you one of those objects based on the values of the information that you are given. So your program is completely based on the base object. Okay. So here also it's going to create one of the object, one of the implementation of the object of your interface. So if interface, it might be having many number of implementations. Okay. So if you are coding with an interfaces, advantage here is interface can store a reference of implementation class, right?
Okay.
Right. Whereas a advantage here is in that interface variable you can store any number of these kind of implementation variables. Factory design pattern is depending on the value that you are going to supply to that pattern, it's going to create one object out of those 10 different classes. Okay, 10 is an example I took. Okay. So depends on the value that is going to create only one object here.
Okay.
Factory design pattern is correct. So your BeanFactory is based on that factory design pattern implementation. So application context is implementation of that. So it's an extension of your BeanFactory. So XmlBeanFactory is an implementation of BeanFactory. Means what exactly it contains. In the layman terms, it is used to load your Spring configuration files. How do we load? So if you are using a BeanFactory in your code, so either of these two have to be used to load your beans in your configuration file.
Okay.
If you are using BeanFactory, you have to use the XmlBeanFactory class. For the XmlBeanFactory, you are going to tell that what is your XML file name. So then when you start your application, all the beans which you have registered in that configuration file are going to be loaded using this XmlBeanFactory and converted into beans and will be stored into this BeanFactory object. Okay.
Okay.
So whereas application context has multiple implementation classes. It has class path. Order is to load the the configuration files. The differences are, first one, the class path XML application context. This loads the context configuration from an XML file located in a class path. Means the configuration file, if you place it in a class path. So you remember the Hibernate configuration file. So first time it was not able to find, then we moved it to some other location, right? Because the technical terms we moved into the class path, like where it is locating actually, right?
Oh yeah.
So if there is a path, and that path it continuously looks for the particular path. If you place in that path, so it's a class path. So if you are placing the file in the configuration,
we placed in a separate XML path, right?
Yes. So we have placed in a src folder, right, somewhere?
Yes.
So it's a class path. The path is under class path.
Yeah.
So because by default it looks for file in that folder. Okay. So like the class path XML context file is, if your configuration file is in your class path, then you need to use a class path application context object to load your configuration file.
Okay.
Got it?
Okay.
And the next one, FileSystemXmlApplicationContext. This loads the context definition from an XML file that is loaded in a file system. So it means generally in your machine you might be having C drive, D drive, or anywhere apart from your project you are placing it somewhere. Rarely we use this, but in case if you are placing it somewhere, so if you want to load that as a Spring configuration file, then you need to go for FileSystemXmlApplicationContext. The next one, XML Web Application Context. If you are using a web project, in the web project, if you are using a Spring, then you need to go for the XML Web Application Context. So end goal is to load your configuration file. There are given it different approaches based on the XML configuration location and the usage that you are doing. Okay, if you are using a the regular project, so if you place in the class path, you need to go for this one. And if you do not want to go for a place it in the class path, and if you want to go for C drive or D drive, which usually because when we say project, mostly place all the projects files related in the same project folder, right? For something else, but in case you have special requirement based on your project, then you might place it somewhere in the drive. That right here using this one. And this is if you are using a web project, right? All three are going to just load the beans which you have configured in your configuration file and give it to you, nothing else. Okay. The dependency injection in the version of control. So we have a little discussed about the dependency injection, right? Dependency injection is the technology that Spring is most identified with is a dependency injection. It's a flavor of inversion of control. Most of the people used to confuse with this, the dependency injection, the conversion. So dependency injection is kind of like a flavor of inversion of control. Okay.
Flavor of okay.
Okay. Means in the technical terms, if you look at it, so it's inversion of control is just a general concept.
Okay.
Dependency injection is a kind of implementation for that concept. So in the layman terms, interface and implementation kind of thing. Okay. So here these two will talk about the loosely coupling here. When we are writing a complex Java application, application classes should be as independent as possible of the other Java classes to increase the possibility to reuse these classes and to test them independently of the other classes while doing a unit testing. Dependency injection is going to help us in gluing these classes together and same time keeping them as independent.
Okay. So you're saying dependency injection, and again you're saying make it independent from each.
Yes. So let me give a small example. Let's say class A is dependent on class B.
Yeah.
Let's look, and the class B is dependent on some other class. So when you are doing a regular kind of a program, so we club everything together. But in the Spring, we are going to create class A as one bin, class B as one bin, and class C as one bin. We refer them in the configuration file rather than you are tying them in your regular program. In the configuration file, you are going to just configure them in a separate way.
Separate. Okay. Separate.
That's where the loosely coupling is.
Okay, even though they are dependent on each other, but here we are configuring
the configuration files.
Separate configuration files for each application.
No. In the same configuration file, we'll create them as a separate beans.
Separate beans. Okay.
Separate beans it is. That's what the dependency and injection and the loosely coupling is.
Okay. Got it.
Clear, right?
Clear.
The Spring is completely based on the interfaces. Okay, so for everything that you usually do, so in the real time we go for the interfaces. So I'll just show you the procedure for installing the configuration. So in order to work with the Spring internally refers the Apache Commons login software. So we need to download both.
Apache, okay.
So download based on, if you are using Linux Explorer, go for this. Otherwise, if it is Windows, download this one. Okay. This is going to have 1 or 2 jar files. That jar files has to be referred.
Okay.
Once you download, it will be something like this. Once you extract, it's a zip file, right? The next one, once you download that, you can directly go for this one. Go to have the zip file. Somewhere it will be in the zip file. This is the zip file which you download. So the download version will be something like this, having a lot of jar files inside it. So these are the jar files which you need to report in your program.
Okay.
Things which need to be download for the configuration file. So to work with the Spring configuration.
Okay.
Got it?
Understood.
It's clear, right?
Clear.
We need to have the configuration file created. So I'll just create the configuration file. So it's not like Hibernate. In Hibernate, the file names are fixed. Remember, right? Hibernate.configuration.xml or Hibernate.properties. That means Hibernate has given you a file name in that you have asked you to configure. But in the Spring, you do not have any restrictions as such. You can name anything, any file name, and pass that file name while loading your configuration, while loading your beans. Okay. You can name it anything. This beans configured. Just copy the structure. This is how it looks like, the sample structure. Okay, I'll just ping this one as for your reference. Inside this, we are going to configure all your beans here.
Mm.
So like, let's take an example of we'll create a class and we'll load that particular class using a Spring configuration file, and we'll see like how it's getting loaded. So it has a couple of scopes configured internally. We'll also look at all those scopes. Okay, clear?
Okay.
Any doubts as of now? The theory part before going into the Spring configuration coding.
No. Clear.
Clear. We'll create a class. Just create a simple bean which is having one field. For that field, you are going to set the value and you are going to get the value. There is nothing apart from that. While getting the value, I just appended another message on top of it just to show the message, nothing else. We'll be creating one more class to test that one. Spring util, Spring demo otherwise. So at this Spring demo, we are going to load the beans configuration file, and that bean configuration file will be accessing here. So what are the things? So I'll be creating it. Just so this is the first time we are using Spring, right? So we need to add all those jar files. So application context is not able to identify. What are the Spring that we have downloaded? We'll be adding a jar files here. Path jars wherever we have placed. We need to add both. So Apache comments also we need to add. One jar, first one. And
only first one, okay.
Only first one. Second one is Java doc it is. Spring configuration file. Need to add all. Added all of them. Said okay. Now it's loading the refreshing your workspace. Right. Now it's imported. This application content is imported, right? On the top. New. So I'm using application context, which covers both some. So when I'm using BeanFactory, I have to go for this one. When I'm using application context, I can go for either of these three. But in our case, the configuration file is placed at ClassPath, right? So hence I'm using the ClassPathXmlApplicationContext to load my configuration file. Got it? First, we'll see whether the configuration file is getting loaded or not. In case if it's not able to find, this is the line. It's going to load the Spring configuration file and all the settings. It will be done automatically.
Okay.
Still, we haven't coded anything in the configuration file. Just a file is created, and we are trying to see like whether the file is getting loaded or not. Then we will add all the bins. So it's able to find the file, right? It's not given any issue in the file name. Suppose if you give the wrong file name, let's see, in case if it's not able to identify the file. See, XML file, it was not a beans one is not there, right? So beans.xml is our file. So that means whatever the file that you have created, it was able to identify. That in the previous case, it was able to identify. Now it's your turn to configure your bin. This is your Java class, right? The Java class is, it can be configured in a beans configuration file. How do you configure? We have to use a tag called bean tag, which is going to help us in configuring that. So it's a simple configuration.
Okay. In class, we need to use the tag bean tag.
Yes. In XML file, we need to use a bean tag.
Okay, in XML file. Okay.
So this is XML file, right?
Yeah.
ID equal to, you can give any name. Class equal to wherever you have coded that class, like as a class. What is the property then that will give name? So this is one bean entry. What a bean entry has, usually when you configure a bean in XML file, so you need to tell what is the ID, means just a ID name, means unique ID, and what's your class. Okay, then it identifies the bean and it loads the bean. So in your case, because you're also having some properties, so some fields in your config bean, so you're passing that. So for the property name, I'm passing Haritha. So what happens? Internally, it's going to create an instance of it, and it is going to fill this name with the value which I have configured here. Okay. So when I request for a bean, it does the same thing. I see how I request. So you understood how I configured just a bean ID class, ID equal to, you need to give some ID and a class equal to something.
Just we configured that.
Context dot get bean. This is going to give me context of get bean is going to take ID. What is the ID that you are given? Yes, ma'am. So you are asking Spring to give me a bean. When you do this, what internally does is it's going to load all the beans which are configured in this one, and it will instantiate and it will make it ready for you.
Okay.
Next time, whenever you ask for a bean, it's going to give you the bean. Okay. So first one is going to load all the beans and then make sure that everything is working fine. And when you ask for a bean, it simply creates an instance for it and it gives you the. I just asked for a bean, so obviously I need to catch in variable, right? So we need to typecast it because it's an object type. What is the output we are going to get here now?
Name.
Hello to the person name.
Yeah.
So did we create an instance for it? No, right? Hello
No.
world, did we create an instance? No, right? We just asked
Just
Spring to give me an instance of.
so in the configuration file we gave all these names and everything.
Exactly. So whatever the name that you are going to hear, it's going to create instance for it, and it's going to give you that object for you. Once you got the object, so here instance management, everything will be taken care by Spring. So this object, so what are the object that you configured here? This object is completely under the control of Spring. It's not with you. Okay, Spring is going to manage this business. Okay, means life cycle wise, everything Spring is going to take care of all those things. You do not need to worry about implementing and handling of the code with respect to anything here. It's going to take care of everything automatically. Because when I say managed means it takes care of everything, initialization, destroying the life cycle and all those things by Spring.
Okay.
You'll see the life cycle once again. Okay. Understood?
Understood.
If I ask for one
so
more,
hello world is equal to context.getBean.
So context.getBean is a method. If you pass an ID, it's going to give you the object. So actually, this is going to follow this getBean method returns an object because this is a general method which is written in an application context, right? It doesn't know whether it has to return hello world or because the class written by Spring Framework. Spring Framework, it doesn't know hello world, right? So it's with the object. In future, you might come up with one more class. So that also should work, right? So that's why they are returning an object. So you can catch that object into your respective class.
Okay.
If they return as hello world, so in future, if you are writing one more Java class, from there also it's going to return the same class, right? Then it will be a problem, right? So they have written the topmost class, the subject class, which covers everything. Got it?
Okay.
The basic structure and how we can configure a bean and we can load a bean in the configure. But today we'll be having a little bit of theory with respect to the Spring Framework.
Okay.
Any confusion or anything you want me to repeat?
No.
Clear? I'll just change the ID. So what's anything observed there? I asked for 2 times.
Oh. No, I didn't listen to you. I was saying
No, okay. So I asked the Spring to give me an object.
Okay, for 2 times.
Get been 2 times. So how many objects I received?
2.
2.
So you asked. Okay, the result is same, single ID.
Result is same ID. That means it is following as a singleton design pattern logic what we had discussed earlier.
Yeah.
That's where it's going to give us the single thing. Got it?
Yes.
So it all depends on the need how you want. In case if you want a single object, it's going to give you the single object. Otherwise, if you want a separate object, that we need to configure that just.
Okay.
Now I'll come back to the discussion about the bean scopes and the differences. Bean scopes and their differences. We have around 5 scopes are defined in the Spring configuration. Okay. What are them? Singleton, prototype, these are the 5 scopes which are defined in the Spring configuration for any kind of a bean you can run. Okay. When it's a singleton, This is the default behavior. That's where, so for our bean, though we have not configured anything, it is following the singleton nature. That's where, like, whenever you ask for a bean, it's giving the same bean because it's the default behavior is singleton. So it's kind of configured a scope equal to singleton. Okay, it's behaving as a singleton way.
Okay, it's giving single object. Okay.
Yes, whenever you configure a bean as a singleton, no matter how many times you ask for a bean, it's going to give you the single object. Okay. The next one. This is the default setting. Though you are not setting, it will treat it as this setting.
Okay, singleton.
Singleton. Yeah. That's where, like, I requested 2 times. I got one object, right? Prototype. Prototype is like, this is going to be like each and every time it's going to create a new object. There are certain cases that not for all the cases I do not want only one object, right? There are certain cases that I might want different objects, right?
Okay.
Singleton is one problem. In that case, I expect single object. But for other scenarios that doesn't work out for me, right? I might be expecting different objects. So in that case, I need to configure as a prototype.
If you want multiple objects, then
prototype scope equal to prototype. If you configure, so every time you ask, it's going to give you the one object. Pass for 10 times, it's going to give 10 objects.
Okay.
Different. And the request or session are web related, means this request equal to your HTTP servlet request, as long as that when you mention the scope equal to request. Okay. As long as so when I say request, see, when you open a browser, when you give a request goes to server and process it and comes back to your console, your browser, right? For anything in general. So that means your request started and completed, right?
Yes.
So that means during that period, in case if you want your bean to be available, you need to mention the scope equal request. Only for that request duration only you want the scope equal request. The same.
I didn't got the point.
When you mention a scope, so these two are useful only with respect to web application. In your web application, if you are using a Spring, okay? Not with regular one. When you mention a scope equal to request, it scopes a bean definition to a HTTP request. So only valid in the context of web kind of application. As long as your HTTP request is valid, the life of your bean will be valid.
Okay.
So the request is like how long will be valid? It's very short duration, right? When you request and when it's going to the various layers and it performs something, it will come back and the request is going to be completed, right?
Yes.
As long as that request is available, the scope, when you configure a bean as scope equal to request, the life spans across.
Okay, it will be for
only for the duration. Yeah, forever. The session is also same thing. As long as the session is valid, so you're saying scope equal to session. So when the session is not available, obviously the bean won't be available, right?
Yeah.
So scope equal to session. If the session is reformatted, so beans has to be reloaded once again. Okay, that's where like these two are like the web aware. So mostly we'll be going for these two, depends on the context. Okay. We do not want to go for the shorter duration and session aware also we do not want. It's a specific reason only. Mostly go for either of these then. The last one, the global session. Global session is like, so if you are working on a project related to portlets, if you are WebSphere portal and portlets development, if you are working on, then you need to go for a global session. That means Spring is not only created only for the one kind of a functionality. It's a kind of like open kind of a functionality which can be used in any areas. Right? So they have covered vast areas and they have implemented the functionality. So whatever we require, we are going to plug in accordingly to use them.
Okay.
But the global section is a scope which works only on the portal related kind of application. Portal. Got it? I'll show you the main definitions. Now I'm going to configuration file. Simply I'm saying scope equal to Singleton. This is how we configure. Okay.
Mm-mm.
If I go to demo, what happens? And we should not see any difference because it's a default length.
Yeah.
Configure prototype.
Should give 2 IDs.
Should give 2 IDs exactly. Right, not is on it. So if I request one more time, it is going to be one more object. So the scope indicates that what is the life of the bin here. So based on this, the configuration is going to give you the number of objects, and that object is going to be available. So Singleton, it's available throughout. So whoever is going to ask for a bin, simply it's going to create. So what exactly, when you configure scope equal to Singleton, it follows the same implementation that we followed in the Singleton design pattern. It checks whether the bin is already created or not. If so, the same bin is going to create it for us. Hence, we are going to get only one copy. Otherwise, we are not going to get the same copy. Clear?
Okay, yeah, understood.
So, any doubts on? So, just covered up to this.
No, clear.
The topic what you discussed.
Clear.
Clear, right? Okay, Artha, I think we are good for today.
Okay.
So it's going to take 1 more hour, so I do not want to rush. So what tomorrow I won't be available.
Okay.
So Monday I'll be taking a class. Okay.
Okay. So on Monday at what time?
Same time.
7.
Yeah, same time.
Okay. Okay. So in 1 hour we are going to complete the whole.
Yes. 1.5 hour average.
Okay.
Same 1.5 hour only.
So Monday is our last day.
And Monday is our last day.
Okay.
Though it is just an official formal closing, but still we can continue. Like whenever you are practicing and if you are facing some issue, you can reach out to me.
Okay.
An email anyway.
Sure.
You are having my email ID, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So today I do not want to rush it, so just will.
Okay.
The flow only.
Okay. No problem. We will see it on Monday.
Yeah. So I thought like I might be taking more number of days. It's only 1 day, right? So only Friday we are skipping and Monday anyway we are continuing. And then it's better to go with that option.
Okay.
Okay. So we'll continue on Monday, Artha.
Okay then. Bye.
Okay, bye. Good night.
Good night.